Konstantin Korotkov is considered to be among a handful of the premier physicists in Russia, a country that reveres its scientists. I considered it a genuine honor to have an hour of his time so that he could bridge our understanding of the unseen world of energy with scientific principles. As a professor of physics, Konstantin holds 12 patents on biophysics inventions, including that of his renowned bioelectrography device, which captures living energy fields around people, plants, and water, all living systems. This device has allowed us to peek into the essence of the life force itself, including our food supply, the water we drink, and the energy that occurs when two or more gather. The word energy is now coming to the forefront. You can even hear it on the evening news, usually with some sort of derogatory statement following it because it's considered New Age. However, it's anything but. It's the building block of everything, and you have done remarkable work in measuring the energy output so that we can really start making a crossover from the world of science into the world of energy, energy healing, and so forth. Can we start with some of the very common elements of life around us, our air, our water, our food sources? And I know you say Americans have horrible food, and you're absolutely right. So begin there or wherever you like with this.
Okay, so you're absolutely right that now the word energy is very, very popular. But to use any word, first of all, we need to give definition. What do we mean by that? Because in a lot of metaphysical background environment, they use this word without any meaning and without understanding. So when they use energy healing, sorry, what do you mean by that? So first of all, we need to make very clear definition. And I'm a physicist with background in quantum physics. I've spent many years in Soviet Union in this type of research. So for me, it is absolutely acceptable to take normal physical definition of the word energy. And we have many different types of energy. We have energy mechanical, we have chemical, we have physical energy, we have potential energy, kinetic energy, and in particular in biology, in our research, we use energy that we define as energy of electrons.
Of electrons, yes.
So we can measure in principle and exactly define the energy of electrons, and typically it's measured in electron volts. And then we can tell that we have electrons in background state, in organic molecules, and we have excited electrons that have extra energy. And this energy may be accepted by light, because when we accept light, mostly sunlight, we increase the energy of our body. It means that we increase the energy of particular specific electrons. This same way we can increase this energy by electromagnetic impulses, by different fields. And these electrons may be transformed from one part of the body to another part of the body. So when we tell about energy, energy circulation, energy movement, energy meridians, we mean that we define this energy as electron transfer along protein complexes in organic tissues and in particular in connective tissues. So in Russia we have a very strong line of biophysics, and it was demonstrated and proven in biophysics that electron transfer in complex organic molecules can come due to tunnel effect.
Say that again? The
tunnel effect.
Okay.
So it's jumping of electrons from one group of molecules to another group of molecules, because it was a bit of question how it's possible. And of course we have a lot of electron transfer due to electrolysis, because in our connective tissues we have always some water molecules, and these water molecules allows to organize this electron transfer. And this is, from our point of view, it's the basis of all this energy transfer, energy work.
Which is what the energy work of energy healers, Reiki, and so forth.
No. Okay,
No?
let's not mix together everything.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. When we talk about the energy healers, are they actually affecting these exact portions of the, you say, through the water, through the connective tissue and so forth? Is that what they're...
Yes, they do this through the water,
Yes.
from our point of view. And when we tell that the person is full of energy,
Yes.
or it's lack of energy, it means that there are electrons that are transported to mitochondria, and then they are used to produce ATF, ADF, to really get energy to muscles and to different organs and systems. So we are based on normal biophysical concepts of energy stimulation in the body, and this concept is underlined by electron transfer. So from this point of view, then it's understandable if we have some device or human influence or the influence of some particular food or water. This is designed only to provide those electrons to different parts of the body. And our brain, our mental concentration, would allow us to redistribute those electrons from one part of the body to another part of the body. And in Oriental practice, it is known as energy movement along chakras, along meridians, along kundalini. And it's really effective because it's measurable.
Right.
We can measure the output of photons or electrons in different parts of the body. We can measure temperature in different parts of the body. And this allows us to see this transfer of energy.
And they've actually been, even the images of this have been captured using radioactive isotopes along meridians, acupuncture meridians, by Jean-Claude Duras years ago. So we can see that there is a movement of something beyond what is clinically definable.
No, but it is clinically definable. But the problem is that no one was able to define meridians.
Meridians, exactly.
Because they don't exist.
Yeah.
We don't need some nosological passes, because it's transfer of electrons, transfer of energy due to this electron transfer through the connective tissues, through the bone marrows. So it may be done in any part, and there are seems to be some specific areas where it is more likely to have this transfer, but it depends on condition. Any acupuncture doctor knows that some points may be active, some may be absolutely slow. Some give big resistance, some give very low resistance. And it totally depends on condition of a person and time cycle of a person.
Right.
Because it changes with time, it has its own cycles.
And the human body having, the human being having its own cycles, we breathe, we sleep, we eat, we drink water, and basically we're living in a world, certainly in the Western world, in the United States to a very good extent, that it's denuded of any kind of really vital energy source, starting with our food, the vitality. And you've actually taken it upon yourself, you've done a tremendous amount of travel to be able to measure the output, the I guess it's the electron output of all of these substances. And what have you found in the way in which we're living in the modern world?
We are measuring the output of electrons and photons stimulated by electromagnetic field. So it is quantum process. That's why we can measure it at any subject. Would it be living being? Would it be water, some cosmetic product, leaf, plant, or stone? And the only difference that for human being it is some changeable process. It is repeatable, but it's quite stable. But it has some line of variation.
Right.
We have much stronger energy in daytime, then it comes down, then again it increases, then it comes down again. So we have a cycle. We have day cycle, we have month cycle, we have a cycle during the year, and we have the main in our life 11 years cycle. So when we are measuring food, again, we are measuring this output of electrons and photons. And we have database of situations when we are measuring good food, organically grown, conventionally grown, and chemically grown. And of course, it's tremendous difference.
And this difference has an impact on our overall health, the quality of our lives, our energy levels.
Yes, it has a very clear effect on our health state. And it was a study done by different groups using different instrumentations, including ours, that demonstrated that people who drink good water, and by good water we mean first of all natural water, water from natural springs, water that have a low level of contaminations, that have appropriate level of different minerals and substances, people having good food, again natural food, they have much higher health quality compared with people who use conventional food or just artificial water.
So when you come to America and you do these kinds of events where you have to be in a city for a few days at a time, what do you notice the primary difference between food from your garden in Russia compared to here?
Not only my garden. In Russia we have very good food and very good tradition of food. And people really care preparing food. In the United States, it's a fantastic country, it's a great country, and this country was great in developing different technologies. So it was first technology in car making, then technology in electronics, and technology in aviations. So every technology was designed to the best and the highest level. Same was done in food production. So it was designed as technology. And it was huge factories, and it is huge factories. They are producing meat, chicken, vegetables, fruits. So it designed like factories with very high effectiveness. And it was an interesting idea, but then it was found that this idea doesn't work for people.
No.
Because, first of all, in this production it's necessary to use a lot of chemicals. Because to keep, for example, 1,000 of chicken together in one little place, relatively little, you need to use antibiotics, you need to use a lot of different chemicals, medications, and of course a lot of drugs to let them grow. So,
hormones.
Hormones, absolutely. And then it all comes to people. And it all is kept in people's body.
I think this is one thing that is just becoming better understood now, which is the passed on effect of these antibiotics, and also the hormones are changing the maturation rate of the people in this country.
Absolutely.
It's been bumped up, what, 1.5 years, 2 years, the rate of maturity, because of these effects, right? Aside from the fact that 25% of all antibiotics don't even work anymore. So,
sure.
Not good.
Absolutely. It's a very bad situation, because we need antibiotics in our life. We need it. And it was fantastic achievement of humankind to develop antibiotics. But when they are used on every step, of course they lose their effectiveness. And we have a lot more and more microcultures that are resistant to antibiotics.
Right.
So they need to develop more and more strong antibiotics.
Right.
And of course any antibiotic has tremendous side effects. They tremendously destroy all microflora in our stomach, in our colons. And people have to restore it later on.
This is a big problem.
That's a tremendous problem.
Well, and passed on, even drugs such as Prozac.
Of course it has
I mean, in the water supplies, city municipal water supplies, there are still signatures from that drug in the drinking water that are not purified out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is really a tremendous problem of using medications when they are not really necessary.
Right.
Without any understanding what would be the long-range effects.
Right.
Mostly for children.
Yes.
Because children, they grow up, their organisms are very subtle, and when they use medications to control their growth, to control their behavior, it is dreadful. It's a crime.
It is a crime. I couldn't agree with you more. And the lack of education, because this is the way. This is how we are educated, that these foods, this mass culture of these factory foods are the culture. It's counterculture to find sources that are organic. Until now. Now it's becoming more popular. Some movie stars have gotten on board. It kind of takes a movie star to make something popular.
Yes. And you see the example of United States, really it is a bad example for all the world.
Yeah.
Because it's the most rich country in the world, it's most developed country in the world, country where you can find everything if you want, but the country where the health of population is quite bad.
No, we're starving to death for real nutrients. As we
Yes.
get fatter and fatter, we are starving to death.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And so this goes with our, I'd like to go back to water for just a moment. You were talking about natural spring water, which of course very few, a very small percentage of the population would actually have access to. But what about some of the technologies, Patrick Flanagan's work and others, where they use elements, megahydrin and such, that structures water? Are these beneficial if you're trying to restore some energy to the water?
Tremendous beneficial.
Okay.
And of course, you are correct that to use spring natural water, it's difficult. But anyway, you can find it in stores.
Yes.
You can find on one shelf, it will be good water prepared with good minerals. And understand that it's distilled and then some minerals added. So it is absolutely dead water.
Dead water.
And then you can find practically same price water from natural springs.
And I've heard you, but I heard you also mention the fact that water, the movement of water, is what helps structure water. So in some cultures, they actually observe a practice of pouring.
Yes,
the pouring
absolutely.
of the water before drinking is very important. Can you talk about that from a scientific viewpoint? These are not just old wives' tales.
Yeah, so when we apply strong movement to water, we dissolve water molecules.
Yes.
And they create active radicals. Those radicals, they exist for billions fractures of a second. But it's enough to combine different structure in water. And most of the structure comes due to some minerals that are kept in water, because practically pure water doesn't exist at all. It's just mathematical model. So we always have some impurities in water, but it's normal. And then they create clusters around those atoms and molecules. And these clusters, they have a structure of a particular mineral or particular crystal, so they make water crystallized. And after this, water is much more structured.
And why is it important to have structured water?
Because our blood, it is a structured liquid. Our inner liquids in our stomach, it's all structured liquids. It's very easy to show. Please put a drop of blood on the glass, and you will see in several seconds it will be structured. Because, and even if you dilute it, you will see some structure.
Now, distilled water, though, you take water and you distill it, no structure?
No structure, absolutely.
No structure.
Because it is absolutely chaotic process.
Yes.
So, the devices that structure water, they are very useful, but we need to take into account two topics. First of all, water should be pure. It shouldn't contain negative contaminations.
Arsenic, chlorine.
Arsenic, chlorine, then iron, then mercury. So a lot of waters from commercially available sources, they have these impurities. So what is recommended? Because it's due to pipes. We have so many pipes, and it's understandable. So what is the first step should be? To use normal filters.
Normal filters?
Yes, normal filtering system. And typically it's several stages of filtering.
Right. Reverse osmosis, is that okay?
We don't need reverse osmosis.
Okay.
We need just normal filtering.
You mean like charcoal, or what do you mean by
typically
normal?
it comes, the first stage comes in paper filter. It filters out main impurities, big impurities. Then it is coal filter. Then it's microfiber filter.
Okay.
We don't need reverse osmosis.
Okay.
Because it changes structure. Filtering, it keeps the structure.
Okay.
And coal, it makes it even more structured. Then it makes sense to use some energizing device that make a structure to water, like Flanagan's, like GA water, like something. Now there are a lot of devices of this kind available. Of course, they should be tested, but some of them are very effective. Then you have really good water, even from tap source in any city.
And this is really a foundational key to energizing our bodies again.
Yes, yes, that is the key principle and key element.
Okay, so we've talked about food. You don't want food that's basically grown factory style and dead. You want organic food grown from land that's been treated properly and vitalized. Right?
Yes, of course. But the first thing what I do coming to any market or any store, I just smell the food.
You smell it, yes.
Yes.
Most of it has no smell in the grocery store. In the
If it is
supermarket.
no smell, then it is synthetic.
Mm-hmm.
If it has some smell, then it has something to the earth.
Yes.
It may be not even organically grown. It may have some fertilizers, but anyway, if it has smell, it means that it has something from the earth.
Some kind of life force going.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, well,
then
that's
it's
a
good for
one.
our health.
What about genetically modified organisms?
We have a lot of study now in Australia, in Russia, that demonstrate that GM food are really dramatic for animals.
The changes in the animals? By eating them, you mean? Or?
It was experiments, then they feed rats and rabbits with GM food.
What
And
happened?
in second, third generations, they have a lot of deformed offsprings. A lot.
Second and third generation, that's not that far out. So it's actually making changes or in the DNA.
It makes change in DNA, absolutely, in DNA structure. And it was a study done very precisely, very carefully. So the principle is we don't know exactly what would be the long-range outcome of this GM food.
Right.
Because it is artificial mixture of different genes.
Right.
And they add genes that may be really damaging for the body. Because the main principle is we can consume anything in little quantities. Will be even poison.
Mm-hmm.
In principle, we can recover.
We are. Arsenic,
Yes.
it's in the water,
Yeah,
right.
in principle. But our liver, it keeps these traces of different negative influences, and it keeps it for time being, and it at some moment it comes to some level when we feel it.
Yes.
And the system reacts to this.
Right, and well, it's interesting. They've done these studies. What has the net effect been? You said, did you say Austria or Switzerland? Where these studies?
Australia.
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 Okay.
And in Russia.
And in Russia.
And
so
some study in Switzerland as well, I know of.
So are GMO are they banned in those countries as a result of
In
that?
Russia, it is banned. In European community, it's banned. I don't know about Australia.
Okay. Interesting. We're quite a bit behind here in the U.S. on that.
Yeah,
Still trying to argue the point publicly to for public opinion that they're safe and okay.
Yeah, because
We're still
it's big
there.
money. We all understand because it's tremendous money.
Tremendous money.
Yeah, because this GM food, farmers can't keep these GM grains for next harvest.
No.
They need to buy it.
Yes,
That's
Monsanto.
it.
Monsanto.
Absolutely. So it's tremendous money for the industry.
Well, as a naive reporter about, maybe 15, 17, 18 years ago, I actually was invited to do a story on the flavor saver tomato at the university, not understanding any of this except there was a fish gene that was inserted into the genetic complex so that it wouldn't rot as fast. And it wasn't for years that I understood exactly what I had seen and what was going on. I had no idea of the complexities of what was to come.
Absolutely.
And so you get people in the media on board telling these stories, and for the last 15 years people have been eating genetically modified tomatoes. I hope not, because I didn't know any better as a reporter than to say, no, run for your life.
Yeah, because the question is what would be in the next generation.
Exactly. Because when you're talking about rats, of course, you're seeing the DNA changes and very quick generational changes in humans. I don't want to wait to see what's going to happen. I think they certainly should be banned. And this brings us also, we've talked about that. We haven't talked too much about the air we breathe and the vitality and energetic imprint of the air. And you're really big on negative ions. Can you talk about that and how we can infuse those in where they naturally are not?
Yeah, it was a big study done, first of all, by our Russian scientist Chizhevsky in 40s and 50s, where it was demonstrated that air having no negative ions has very dramatic effect to life. And the experiment was very precisely done. It was 2 sealed cages of rats, and in one cage it was air where all ions was filtered out.
Right.
And in another cage was air with increased quantity of negative ions.
Yes.
And it was demonstrated that in the cage with negative ions, longevity was 3 times bigger than in another cage.
Well, that's substantial, 3 times the
3
lifespan.
times. Yeah, so it is really a tremendous fact, 300%.
And in Russia, I heard in your lecture that it's required to have negative ion generators in, what, hospitals and clinics of certain types? This is good thinking.
It's not required.
It's just
it's
done?
It's not regulation to have it, but most of clinics, they do have it.
They do. It's not a requirement. This is voluntary.
Yes. It's not a voluntary because it is up to the doctors whether they have it or haven't, because they have some fundings, they have some resources, and it's quite popular because it's very well known in Russia.
How can we, besides the negative ion generators, what are some of the other ways in which we can infuse more negative ions into our own atmospheres in our homes, for example?
Yeah, first of all, those negative ions should be connected with water vapors.
Water vapors, okay.
So we should some appropriate content of water vapors, of humidity in the air, and then this is the best if it is negative charged water vapors. So in Russia and in Europe now we have special generators, electrical generators, that produce water vapors enriched with negative ions. So it is in Europe and in Russia it's quite available. I don't know about how it is in the United States, but as it is coming fast, then I'm absolutely
It's not common,
sure.
but you can find them if you wish. Yes.
And it's very good because it's very easy to check. You just need to install it in your bedroom, and you will find that you sleep much better and less time.
What does it do to the immune system as well?
Of course, because it's very good support to immune system.
As that study of the 3 times the longevity would indicate.
Yes,
the same thing for
absolutely,
humans.
absolutely.
So there's every reason to do this, especially you say
yes.
as we sleep in particular.
Yes,
And what
yes.
about in the workplace? I mean, is it good to have it
in
the...
Russia, again, it's very typical to have these negative ions in workplace, in offices, because I can give a very funny example. I have a friend of mine who is a big businessman. He's a smoker. He smokes a lot. When you enter to his business office, you feel the beautiful air of pine trees. No smoke at all. He's smoking, but he has a negative ion generator that is specially designed to prevent the smoke coming from him to another place.
Oh, I can see the practical application here. Somebody who doesn't want their wife to know they're still smoking.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a very good application because
that's wonderful.
You know that this smoke is very dangerous for non-smoking people, but
Yes,
being in
secondhand.
the nearby.
Yeah, and there's a
was-
lot of awareness of that in the United
Yeah, absolutely,
States.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely sure that it's a really damaging effect. But with this negative ion generator, it's absolutely safe.
And you just mentioned pine trees a moment ago.
Yes, absolutely.
And the notion that where you have forests that have been denuded and ruined, like in Palestine, where all of the foliage has now been removed and is gone, what effect does that have on the health of the people?
Of course, it is absolutely dramatic effect, because the area where it was pine trees, it was big forests, now they're totally devastated.
Yeah.
And of course, people are living in desert.
Yeah.
They live in very bad condition. And if you look to the health state of people living in those countries, of course, it's quite low. They have a lot of problems. They have a lot of diseases, skin diseases, bronchial diseases, because they have very bad air.
And the vitality of the pine tree itself also, does it create a negative ion atmosphere, or what does the pine tree itself do? Using pine specifically, because I heard you mention them.
Yeah, they, as any tree, they produce oxygen, and this is charged oxygen, so it's active oxygen. And pine tree, they are specifically produce much more active oxygen compared to other plants and other vegetations.
So I think I might be backing into it at this point, but you talk about ecogenetics now. What does that mean, and what are its implications?
It means that now we have some influence to nature, mostly by polluting nature. And this nature pollution has effect on our genophond. So genetic profile of people now is changeable. And we can see this in second generation, in children, because we have more and more children who are born with some problems, genetically embedded problems, due to genetically modified DNA of their parents. So we should understand that our ecology science and our troubles, those are not just for poor animals, but for ourselves.
Yes.
If we wouldn't take care of this pollution, of this food that is polluted, of water that is polluted, if we wouldn't take care of ourselves, then we need to understand that we'll have this problem in next generations.
And the subsequent generations.
Yes.
And let's take one subject of just mad cow disease itself, and the genesis of mad cow disease.
Yeah, it was, at the beginning it was unclear what has happened, but then it was studied and demonstrated absolutely exactly. It was idea to feed cows, to add to cow food some meat, processed meat. Because factories which produce meat, they have a lot of leftovers that they was just destroying somehow. And someone came to a clever idea to process those leftovers, to produce some powder, and to add this powder to cow's meat, to cow's food. And it was found that cows, they grow much faster, they accept weight, because they have direct albumin. Because you know that from grass or some other food, they have long three-stage processing of food to get to albumin. And here they get direct albumin, and it was found that they grow up much faster. But then it has created this problem of cow madness, because it had those albumins. They had absolutely disastrous effect to cow's brain. And it was found that this is dangerous for people as well, because this is...
And this is still a common practice. I mean, this is still what the cows commercially are fed.
As I know, in most countries, it is forbidden now.
Is it?
It is forbidden, yes, as you know, because when they found the reason, of course, they made special regulations that allows to forbid it.
So these kind of rendered meats
Yes.
and fats are...
That's why it was the problem only for developed countries.
Right.
In Russia, we never had this problem.
Well, when cows graze on grass, you're not going to have mad cow disease.
Absolutely.
And also, you were talking about utilizing all of the senses, and one of the things you mentioned today was also the sense of smell. And can you talk about the nature of... There was a Nobel Prize that was awarded for a study on the sense of smell. How do the senses play in particularly the sense of scent,
Yes. Yeah, you see, in our life, the sense of smell plays a very important role that people don't understand. Because we just smell some perfumes, we sometimes smell food, and that's it. But in reality, we constantly react to different smells. And this is absolute subconscious reaction. For animals, it is one of the main source of their information. You know,
for survival.
For operating an environment, for intercommunication. These are the main source. Any dog, any cat, that would always smell everything. For us, of course, it's much less important. But anyway, we react to smell because we are part of animal kingdom. And the smell of food, it triggers a lot of physiological mechanisms in our digestive system. So when we have this good smell, we immediately trigger some process in our stomach to be prepared for the particular food. That's why it is so bad to have food with artificial smell.
And also have other elements in the environment that destroy our sense of smell, certain chemicals.
Yes, absolutely, of course, sure. And of course, we should understand that smell, it is a strong sexual attractor.
Yes.
So we need to use perfumes, we need to use different cosmetics, and to use it clever. And when some people, they mix different cosmetics together, then of course it creates very funny effect.
Right, a funny effect. And so when you look at the lack of our ability in developed world to have a full-blown sense of smell in operation because the foods don't particularly have them. If you go buy flowers at the market, they've been raised, also factory raised, so you're not smelling those flowers in the same way. You're saying that on an energetic level, if this isn't beginning the processes of opening up, starting the digestive enzymes and so forth, what is the net effect of that when we go about then consuming our food?
Yeah, of course, if it is artificial food, it has no smell, then it creates no signals to our system. But at the same time, it's a signal that it's artificial. So,
well, okay.
On the vice versa. And it's funny that you've mentioned flowers. I had one friend who came from the United States, living there maybe for 10 years, and she came back to Russia. She told the worst impression was that in the United States, no flowers have smell.
Yes,
So
unless they're wild or in your backyard.
Yes, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
that's very true. You send someone, you send your lover, a sweetie, a bouquet of a dozen red roses, and there's no scent.
Yes.
And so it's lost half of its beauty right there.
Yes, absolutely. It's very pity. And smell is related to our memory. That's why when we have something significant in our life and we have some smell with this, then this just particular smell can trigger this recall.
Yes.
So it triggers these memories.
Another common element of our lives in the developed world and undeveloped world, or third world nations as it was said, is cell phones. They're everywhere now. And you have measured the effects of what happens to a person when they're talking on a cell phone for as little as 10 minutes. Can you talk about some of your findings?
We've done a very precise blind study where people was keeping cell phones nearby their head, and some cell phones was turned on, some cell phones were turned off. And it was found, first of all, significant difference, statistically significant. And it was found that people really react to cell phone emanation, but react differently. For some it is quite little reaction, non-significant. For some it is really strong, significant reactions.
Even the average was quite, looking at your charts, the average reaction was still significant.
It's quite significant, because about 10% of population reacts very significantly. So when we average on a group, say about 30 people, we have significant reaction to cell phone. But what is most important, that this reaction lasts for quite a long time. So even when people stop using cell phone, they still have this change in their condition. And first of all, it is heart rate, it is immune system, it is energy system. So it is really has some effect.
So it drops for as much as what? How long does it take for a person to start recovering from their 10-minute cell phone call?
About half an hour, from half an hour to an hour, depending on a person as well.
And so if you spend all day on the cell phone, especially kids and teenagers, then what's happening?
It may be absolutely dramatic, absolutely.
Brain tumors, do you think that there
they
is
may develop a lot of different problems.
Yeah.
It may be brain problems, and a lot of cases now, as we know, we have increase of brain problems with children and young generation, strong increase. And it is a lot of doctors, they decided that it's related to cell phone using.
So what can we do to ameliorate those problems?
First of all, we need to use the modern cell phones, because the older the model, the higher the influence.
More the radiation?
Yes,
Yeah.
because in modern cell phones they try to diminish radiation, they try to use higher frequency, and higher frequency is less influensive. They try to use impulse settings, and again it's less influensive. And second, we need to use some earphones.
The earpiece.
Earpiece, yes.
Just get the phone away from
Yes, absolutely, just to keep it away from our body. Yes.
Well, you're saying not just your ear, your body.
Yes, absolutely.
What if you keep it in the breast pocket of your jacket?
It is very bad. It is the worst situation, mostly for women. It may really have dramatic outcome, because the increase of breast cancer in developed countries, it was exactly related to the development of these network connections. So we have all, of course it's only suspicion,
Right.
We can't tell for sure.
Right.
Absolutely, it's impossible to tell for sure. But as we have some probability, it's better to keep it away.
Right.
So the best to keep it either outside of the body, in purse,
In the purse, right.
or just at the back pocket.
But and you sit on it.
So it depends.
But you got a lot of cushion there to keep it away from other organs.
Yes. So it's better to keep it away from main organs like
Right.
heart, like liver, like kidney, like genital organs,
Yes.
because it has some influence for sure.
Okay.
At the same time, we don't want to reject them totally. We will use it for sure. But we need to take care, and first of all, to keep them away, to use the different earpieces, to increase our immune system, and to use different protective devices, protective sets.
And when you're traveling around the world, you go to a lot of exotic places, you go to a lot of pristine places, and you take your instrumentation with you and you measure energy signatures from water, from mountain tops, from various places. And a lot of this is really lending credence to what was known throughout history before in ancient times.
Sure.
What are some of those essential truths that you have learned through being able to measure the fields scientifically?
You know, there was a lot of historical anecdotes that it was places of high energy where people was gathered, where they had their different ceremonies, where later they have been creating different church buildings, temples. And one of our aim is to support these claims, to find out whether it's real or it's just anecdotal evidence. And so in our measurements, we really found that there are a lot of places that have been considered as holy places, as sacred places, that have really very specific energy patterns. Because we can measure in different substances, in water, in air, in soil, in vegetation, and it was found a lot of confirmations of those facts.
So what are a few of the places on the planet that you saw what you would expect to in terms of the high energy output of a given area?
We need to take into account one moment. When there are a lot of people around, then their influence is much more strong than the influence of place itself. That's why, for example, when I've been to Machu Picchu, we've tried to make measurements, but it was nothing significant, because it was so many tourists around, and human energy, it is very strong. It has strong influence to everything. So we try to measure where we can get access to the places at night, or without people, or at some special stations. And of course our experience is not that big. So we've been measuring and had very high effects in Russian monasteries, in far north of Russia, where it is very remote monasteries in islands, in Solovki Island. That was very high energy output. Then it is tiny islands with spirals.
Yeah, the labyrinths.
Labyrinths,
like
yes,
crop
yes,
circles.
Yes,
Very powerful, the geometry.
Yes, absolutely. It was created in Celtic times by ancient civilizations, and of course, and again, they had very strong energies. Then we've been measuring in natural places, like nearby volcanoes, waterfalls, in different plateaus and mountains, and again, we found very high energy outputs. The final findings was in the crop circles.
Yes.
And it was only one measurement, but it was very interesting. So we plan to make it again this summer and to see what it is.
Well, it's interesting because I have heard of this, other people using magnometers and so forth, simple devices, in that there's all this debate as to what's an authentic crop circle versus a man-made crop circle. But what's interesting is the geometry itself also seems to be producing a signature, an energetic signature.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So it is a lot of controversy whether it is authentic, whether it is man-made. Again, we don't know whether it is the influence of place itself that attracted this crop circle, or crop circle that influenced the place.
Yes.
So at the moment, it's just a question.
Right.
But to answer the question, of course, we need to make different measurements.
Right.
And as I know, it was interesting data by using magnetometers. Then we have interesting data with our instrument. Simple devices, they practically have no real output, and the all measurement of relativity, as I know, they were non-significant. So slow, and as this research is just non-supported by anyone, it is just by enthusiastic people who do this. So of course it comes very slow, because any scientific research needs funding.
Right, right.
Because,
and these are rather esoteric.
Yes, absolutely.
Low
absolutely.
on the list for corporate funding, certainly.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It is very easy to come somewhere and meditate.
Yes.
You need only just little money for travel.
Right.
But if you need to carry on all your equipment, then it's much more complicated.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, let's come full circle back to human beings again and the energy output. And the point you made a little bit ago is important, that human beings possess a great amount of energy and energy influence. And what happens where two or more gather, as they say?
You mean...
where people come together with intention.
Yeah, with our camera, electrophotonic camera, we can measure the influence of people to each other. Because this camera, from one hand, it's very sensitive, from other hand, it's very stable. That's why we can use it in medicine. And when people meet each other with intention, would it be love or hatred, then they really strongly influence each other. And it may be done even without consciousness understanding. You know, this notion of gaze from the back. It's very well known, it was studied, it is really exists. And we see this in real experiments. We have a person seated in a comfortable position in a chair, and then other people come from the back. So this person, he doesn't know who is coming and whether they're coming or not. And we really can see a tremendous difference for people who have no connection with this person, and for example for fiancé or love being who comes from the back. So it is clear evidence that we influence each other.
We influence each other, so we should have some kind of clear intentionality. We should be somewhat aware and conscious of how we're interfacing with others in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we should understand that if we send positive emotions, if we send love to each other, then we increase not only other person's energy field, but our own energy field.
Yes, and we're also working through the waters. We're working through the waters of the body.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And when people send haters, when they send envy, negative emotions, they first of all decrease their own immune system.
Yes.
So that's why all bad witches, they were always presented as very ugly creatures.
Yes, yes.
And all fairies, they were very nice always, because it's understandable.
So you not only damage your own field, but you damage the person that you're sending these intentions to, in some cases.
Of course.
So really, the key here is this is a universe made of energy. We can't ignore this fact anymore. Matter is almost irrelevant compared to the subject of energy. And so it seems essential in really training the children from an early age to understand this. Is this, in your opinion, a critical part of it?
Yes, absolutely. Because children, they are very susceptible to this information. For them it's very easily understandable. They don't have this prejudice as people with higher education.
And the prejudices, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So, and if they are trained, if they see in instruments how it is really effective, then they change their attitude to each other.
Are they doing this in Russia? Are they
Yes,
teaching children to recognize and
yes,
utilize energy?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do this. Yes, yes, yes.
From what age? From the earliest ages?
In school. They do it in school, so they demonstrate how it works, and children are very, very interested in this.
Yes.
And our last conference last year, we had a group of children who done real research on studying the influence of different subjects and energy fields.
Well, it's my hope that some of the other countries of the world, including the U.S., where we are right now in Santa Fe, can take some notice of what you're doing in the Soviet Union on so many levels, with the understanding of our connection, not our connection to, of our universal makeup of energy.
Yes, absolutely. I'm absolutely sure that it's coming.
Yes.
Of course, maybe not that fast as we would have desire.
You're doing your part, though.
Yes, we're doing.
You're out there
yes,
educating
yes, yes.
around the world. You have a
Yes.
crazy work schedule, and
Yes,
I
absolutely.
thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy and you fly out tomorrow. And I also want to tell you, I really like your hairdo.
Oh, thank you very much.
I saw pictures of you with hair. This is good.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, thank you, because it really looks nice.
It looks very hip, and you're very handsome with this hairdo.
No, really. Oh, thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. It was a tremendous pleasure being with you. Tremendous pleasure.
Thank you.
You have wonderful energy.
Thank you.
And you both work as a team, so it's really so pleasure, so big pleasure.
That's nice to hear you say,
Yes.
being the energy man.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Okay.
I can't tell you what a pleasure it was spending time with this man. If you'd like to know more about his groundbreaking work, you can go to his website at the link below. Meanwhile, you might also enjoy our interview with Harry Oldfield and his photography technology, which also captures energy around biological organisms, including the early detection of disease. Until next time, thanks for watching. Konstantin Korotkov is considered to be among a handful of the premier physicists in Russia, a country that reveres its scientists. I considered it a genuine honor to have an hour of his time so that he could bridge our understanding of the unseen world of energy with scientific principles. As a professor of physics, Konstantin holds 12 patents on biophysics inventions, including that of his renowned bioelectrography device, which captures living energy fields around people, plants, and water, all living systems. This device has allowed us to peek into the essence of the life force itself, including our food supply, the water we drink, and the energy that occurs when two or more gather. The word energy is now coming to the forefront. You can even hear it on the evening news, usually with some sort of derogatory statement following it because it's considered New Age. However, it's anything but. It's the building block of everything, and you have done remarkable work in measuring the energy output so that we can really start making a crossover from the world of science into the world of energy, energy healing, and so forth. Can we start with some of the very common elements of life around us, our air, our water, our food sources? And I know you say Americans have horrible food, and you're absolutely right. So begin there or wherever you like with this.
Okay, so you're absolutely right that now the word energy is very, very popular. But to use any word, first of all, we need to give definition. What do we mean by that? Because in a lot of metaphysical background environment, they use this word without any meaning and without understanding. So when they use energy healing, sorry, what do you mean by that? So first of all, we need our mental concentration would allow us to redistribute those electrons from one part of the body to another part of the body. And in Oriental practice, it is known as energy movement along chakras, along meridians, along kundalini. And it's really effective because it's measurable.
Right.
We can measure the output of photons or electrons in different parts of the body. We can measure temperature in different parts of the body. And this allows us to see this transfer of energy.
And they've actually been, even the images of this have been captured using radioactive isotopes along meridians, acupuncture meridians, by Jean-Claude Duras years ago. So we can see that there is a movement of something beyond what is clinically definable.
No, but it is clinically definable. But the problem is that no one was able to define meridians.
Meridians, exactly.
Because they don't exist.
Yeah.
We don't need some nosological passes because it's transfer of electrons, transfer of energy due to this electron transfer through the connective tissues, through the bone marrows, So it may be done in any part, and there are seems to be some specific areas where it is more likely to have this transfer, but it depends on condition. Any acupuncture doctor knows that some points may be active, some may be absolutely slow. Some give big resistance, some give very low resistance. And it totally depends on condition of a person and time cycle of a person.
Right.
Because it changes with time, it has its own cycles.
And the human body having, the human being having its own cycles, we breathe, we sleep, we eat, we drink water, and
it is proven in biophysics that electron transfer in complex organic molecules can come due to tunnel effect.
Say that again? The
tunnel effect.
Okay.
So it's jumping of electrons from one group of molecules to another group of molecules, because it was a big of question how it's possible. And of course we have a lot of electron transfer due to electrolysis, because in our connective tissues we have always some water molecules, and these water molecules allows to organize this electron transfer. And this is, from our point of view, it's the basis of all this energy transfer, energy work.
which is what the energy work of energy healers, Reiki, and so forth.
No. Okay,
No?
let's not mix together everything.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. When we talk about the energy healers, are they actually affecting these exact portions of the, you say, through the water, through the connective tissue and so forth? Is that what they're...
Yes, they do this through the water,
Yes.
from our point of view. And when we tell that the person is full of energy,
Yes.
or it's lack of energy, it means that there are electrons that are transported to mitochondria, and then they are used to produce ATF, ADF, to really get energy to muscles and to different organs and systems. So we are based on normal biophysical concepts of energy stimulation in the body, and this concept is underlined by electron transfer. So from this point of view, then it's understandable if we have some device or human influence or the influence of some particular food or water. This is designed only to provide those electrons to different parts of the body. And our brain...
Basically, we're living in a world, certainly in the Western world, in the United States to a very good extent, that it's denuded of any kind of really vital energy source, starting with our food, the vitality. And you've actually taken it upon yourself, you've done a tremendous amount of travel to be able to measure the output, I guess it's the electron output of all of these substances. And what have you found in the way in which we're living in the modern world?
We are measuring the output of electrons and photons stimulated by electromagnetic field. So it is quantum process. That's why we can measure it at any subject. Would it be living being? Would it be water, some cosmetic product, leaf, plant, or stone? And the only difference that for human being it is some changeable process. It is repeatable, but it's quite stable. But it has some line of variation.
Right.
We have much stronger energy in daytime, then it comes down, then again it increases, then it comes down again. So we have a cycle. We have day cycle, we have month cycle, we have a cycle during the year, and we have the main in our life 11 years cycle. So when we are measuring food, again we are measuring this output of electrons and photons. And we have database of situations when we are measuring good food, organically grown, conventionally grown, and chemically grown. And of course it's tremendous difference.
And this difference has an impact on our overall health, the quality of our lives, our energy levels.
Yes, it has a very clear effect on our health state. And it was a study done by different groups using different instrumentations, including ours, that demonstrated that people who drink good water, to make very clear definition. And I am a physicist with background in quantum physics. I've spent many years in Soviet Union in this type of research. So for me it is absolutely acceptable to take normal physical definition of the word energy. And we have many different types of energy. We have energy mechanical, we have chemical, we have physical energy, we have potential energy, kinetic energy, and in particular in biology, in our research, we use energy that we define as energy of electrons.
Of electrons, yes.
So we can measure in principle and exactly define the energy of electrons, and typically it's measured in electron volts. And then we can tell that we have electrons in background state, in organic molecules, and we have excited electrons that have extra energy. And this energy may be accepted by light, because when we accept light, mostly sunlight, we increase the energy of our body. It means that we increase the energy of particular specific electrons. This same way we can increase this energy by electromagnetic impulses, by different fields. And these electrons may be transformed from one part of the body to another part of the body. So when we tell about energy, energy circulation, energy movement, energy mediums, we mean that we define this energy as electron transfer along protein complexes in organic tissues and in particular in connective tissues. So in Russia we have a very strong line of biophysics, and was demonstrated